to Clarity Design. We're going to have a look at Maya 2011, and we're just going to have a look at some of the basics in Maya 2011 and how to interact with it. And I'm talking about the real basics. This is the first tutorial. We're just going to look at moving around, adding an object, and moving objects around the scene using some basic tools. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you need to know to get started, so we'll whiz through it quite quickly and see how far we can get in the next couple of minutes. Down here is a channel bar. This channel bar, as soon as you've got an object in your scene, I'll just go and make an object. You'll notice that there's certain properties about that object that get displayed here. These are the most common ones for animating. You don't need to worry about that too much at the moment, apart from the fact that you can use these by selecting them and typing in values, and you can position objects directly with that. Further down you've got layers. You don't need to worry about layers at the moment, but in the near future you will need to start using layers to try and help you control the number of objects in your scene and making sure you don't select things accidentally. You can also use those to generate renders as well of certain objects. I'll talk to you more about that another time. At the bottom down here we've got the timeline and the controls for the timeline, and this is in frames, and you can see that we've got 24 frames and 48 frames in total in the scene, 24 showing at the moment. If I click this, I can make 48 show, so just dragging that out with a left click, so I can do that. You don't need to interact with this at all at the moment, that's not what we're going to be doing this lesson. And down here we've got different views that you can click on inside Maya. So this is your orthographic view, the first one to be using, but there's various other options down here. You may be able to see more or less down there depending on your screen resolution. And this is the standard one that you see when you open up Maya, with the view cube there that you can play around with to change the view. Most students like to use this when they first come into Maya, but they soon get tired of using it and revert to different ways of moving around objects and changing views. And just up here you've got some basic tools. The most important for now are these three in the middle, which is the move tool, the rotate tool and the scale tool, and that relates to objects, so that we can move objects, rotate objects and scale objects, scaling big or smaller. And again, each of these handles does something. We'll have a very quick look at those in a second. So how to move around the scene, how to look at different views. Most people, like I said, lean towards this when they first come in, but it soon becomes limiting when you want to see a very particular angle around the other side. Now if you use the left Alt button and you press that down on the keyboard, so to the left of the spacebar, not the right, and you left click, you'll find that you can rotate to whatever position you want around an object or around that central grid there. Now if you press the right key instead, you'll be able to pan across from side to side, and if you use the middle key you can zoom in and out. It's probably worth saying that if you get lost a little bit, you can press F to focus on whatever object you've got selected at the time, and it will reposition it for you. So F is a good quick shortcut key there for whatever you've got selected. So that's moving around the objects. Changing views is quite important. In particular this view here is quite useful because it allows you to see where objects exactly are in a scene. So if I just move that across, you can see I'm positioning it centrally over the grid. It's always good to work from the centre of the grid when you start modelling something new, for various reasons, but when you come to do things like mirroring later on, it really helps you out. Or if you're just building half of a model and you're going to duplicate it and mirror it over the other side, it makes it much easier. So if I made a new object like a sphere, I could position that here, and it looks like it's floating above the cone there, or it could do. If I press Alt and rotate around, you'll see that actually it's positioned right behind it, and this reflects the fact that you should always be looking around your objects, checking that you are actually modelling what you think you're modelling, because the perspective can be a little bit of an illusion sometimes. Now if I press spacebar quickly, that will flick between the different views that I've last used. So the two different views that I last used, which were the top one and the second one down, which is the orthographic view. And using that I can reposition. I could also reposition by typing in remember, so if I wanted to I could change that to a 0, and that's going to position it centrally, and then I could just use this, and you can see it's the Y that I'm pulling there because it's colour coded, so I can pull that up there. So that's the Y that's pulled up to get it above the scene. You can see it's 6.299 above the cone. So I've positioned that accurately, and that's the first thing to try and do, is start thinking, right, how do I make an object, how can I position it accurately in the scene. It's a little bit large for the cone at the moment, looks like it's dwarfing it a little bit, so I'll go to the scale tool and I'll just talk about these handles very basically. If you click the one in the centre, the yellow one that's present, then it will scale all three of the axis evenly. If you pick one of them or the other one, then it will scale that one. If you press Control on the keyboard, it will scale the opposite to from the one you've got selected, which is a little more than you need to know at the moment. But if you press Control and you'd notice something weird was happening, that's what it is. So moving back to my Alt button, pressing that down, I can have a look around, rotate it around. So that's how to use the scale tool, and again all the handles are the same, they behave in exactly the same way. So we can position, rotate and move, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let you go away and build something. Often the task I use for the students when they're first starting out is to build a robot out of the different shapes that they can see on their shelf. This is the shelf, or these are your shelves, and you've got a number of different shelves. You want to be switched onto polygons, and then you can click on the different shapes up here and start building yourself a robot if you like. It's just quite a good building technique to try and position things accurately, and to see if you can make something that's a little bit creative and unusual.